Hello and welcome to Tev's Next Ideas, Solo Toot, which stands for Tools of Our Trade. I'm Terrence, and this is the show where I get to share with you some of the great tools and player aids that are available for the tabletop role player, especially if they like to play solo. Now, this episode is a 3-for-1 because I'm going to be sharing with you 3 tools put out by Conjecture Games. Now, Conjecture Games is pretty much game designer Zach Best. Now, sadly, Zach lost the battle to cancer back in 2017, but thanks to sites like DriveThruRPG, his works are still available to us today. Now, the 3 tools I will be looking at is Oon, Bold, and Surge. Now, the first tool we will be looking at is Oon, which stands for the Universal NPC Emulator, and it's just like it sounds. It is a tool for helping you to create NPCs on the fly. Now, this isn't going to be really detailed. They don't tell you what they look like. They don't tell you all their stats. It's really just to give you an idea of like who they are, what their professions are, what characteristics they have, and what some of their motivations are. Using a D100, the first table you're going to roll on is the NPC modifier. And that comes up with like an adjective that helps describe your character. Are they affluent? Are they dignified? Are they pragmatic? And the second table you roll on is the NPC noun, which pretty much tells you what they are. Are they a champion? Are they a burglar? Are they a hitman? A wizard? Stuff like that. So you will end up with combinations such as a generous merchant, or a romantic fortune hunter, or a conniving judge. But you can also get some really odd combinations like an inept charmer, an evil monk, or a childish globetrotter. So next you need to know what their motivation is, and Oon gives you a couple of tables to help you do this. It's a verb table and a noun table. You roll on each, and you get a combination of a verb and a noun, and then you use those words to determine what motivates them. For instance, you could get advocate narcissism, which basically means that they're very much into themselves. Or it could be aid medicines, which they like to help people, and they may not be a doctor, but maybe they have someone that they can help get some herbs that are important to curing illnesses. Or perhaps possess old religions. This is someone who likes to study and looks into the religions of the world that you have created. You could do more than one of these motivations. In fact, Oon suggests that you roll up 3 for each character. Oon even has a random table to help you determine whether the NPC is stronger or weaker than your character, depending on the circumstance that you're in. Now, you may already know some of the characteristics of an NPC, like what their profession is, or like what motivates them, and that's fine. You don't have to use every suggestion Oon gives you, just pick and choose the ones that you need. One of the more difficult aspects of solo role-playing is having a spontaneous conversation with an NPC. If you're the one coming up with the dialogue, how can you do anything exciting or surprising? In the second part of Oon, they provide a tool for that called the NPC Interaction Emulator. To use this tool, the first thing you need to do is determine the NPC's demeanor. And those are the top lines of this table right here. Now, this table assumes from the start that you have no idea what their demeanor is. So by rolling a 10-sided die or a 100-sided die, you can figure that out. However, just like with character creation, you all may already have an idea and can narrow this list down. For instance, you're visiting your loving mother. She's probably not going to be hostile, insane, or scheming. Most likely she'll be friendly, maybe inquisitive about you. She may even be keeping a secret and be mysterious. Or you're locked in prison and talking to the guard. Well, he's probably not going to be friendly. And he may not be insane. He'll most likely be hostile, prejudiced. Of course, he doesn't like you. He may even be scheming of, how he can, cheat you out of something since you're only a prisoner. So in either one of those cases, you just pick the words that will go along with it and you roll on that, or maybe you even know exactly what their demeanor is going to be. So you just choose that. Now, once you have a demeanor, that informs what list you're going to roll on next. So let's use inquisitive for this example. Let's say we roll a 10-sided die and get an 8, and that'll be skepticism. And this takes us to the final table, the NPC focus. What are they talking about? You roll a 100-sided die, choose the associated word, and then you're ready to put them all together. Let's say we roll a 23 and we get relics. So now you put those words together and you get something like the inquisitive NPC speaks of skepticism regarding relics. So to me, that brings in mind you're having dinner with an old professor friend. And over the first course, he's talking to you about a recent archaeological dig that he had just read about. But he has suspicion that some of the relics found there may not be authentic. And he's asking you to go to the dig and try to get some samples so that he can look at them himself. Okay, so now you have your NPC. Do they have a backstory? What have they done in their past? Or your character, for that matter. What's your backstory? Or what did you do for that week that you weren't adventuring? Well, Conjecture Games has a tool to help you determine that, and that is called BOLD. BOLD stands for the Book of Legends and Deeds, and it is a pretty much of a tool to give you some inspiration to come up with stories that explain what your character did in the past, or what an NPC has done in the past, or maybe even felt the backstory of an adventure. BOLD does this through a series of little phrases or sentences that they call waylays. And you guessed it, they have tables to create these waylays. So let's look at this first table. So the first column on your table is the descriptor, and you want to use a 10-sided die to roll on that, and that'll basically give you what type of obstacle it is. Is it a hard foe? Is it a faction? Is it a group of people that's causing the problem? Is it personal? Is it something that just your character is dealing with? Is it natural? Is it something in nature? Then once you have your descriptor, you roll another 10-sided die and you pick the word to the right of that descriptor that matches that roll. For instance, your first roll could be a 8, personal. Your second roll could be a 10, rival. Next, we're going to modify that noun. So you roll on this waylay modifier table with another 100-sided die, and then you pair the two together. So using our example above, let's say you roll a 42, noble. So you know that you are trying to overcome a noble rival. And last, and this is optional, you can roll a solution to your problem. So using our noble rival example, let's say you roll a 7 and it says a scarce used ability. So now you put all that together in a sentence. So you get noble rival overcome by a scarce used ability. So let's say this character that you roll this waylay up on is a merchant. And there's this noble in town that is not like him. So he bribes government officials to pass ordinances that are against him or fine him for really stupid violations. You can say that he overcame this by a scarce usability. Let's say the scarce usability is this merchant can tell the future, but he doesn't like to do it because he thinks it's unethical, so he never does it. But on one particular time, he sees something about the noble that is not very flattering to him, and he uses it to his advantage to get the noble to stop, something like that. Now, suppose one small waylay isn't enough. You really need to have a bigger backstory for your character, or you're trying to create events that led to the adventure that you're in. Well, you can use what is known as an arced waylay. An arced waylay is basically a bunch of these waylays put together in a particular way that helps you tell the story. You start with the theme waylay. This is the noun and a modifier, and these two words, you don't roll up a solution, and these two words inform you about the rest of the waylays that you are going to roll up. Next, you're going to roll 3 nested waylays, just like we did with the noble rival example. And then you use those 3 waylays to develop a story and the events that happened that all fall under the heading of the theme. So you have some NPCs, you know what your characters did last week, it's time to get the adventure started. If you've read my Starting Solo article, you know that one of the most important tools I feel you need is an oracle. And Conjecture Games provides you with a good oracle in their product called CRGE. CRGE stands for Conjectural role-playing Game Master Emulator. In other words, it's an oracle, or what the game likes to call a loom of fate. To get an answer on the loom of fate, you roll a D100 die, and the answers are pretty typical. Yes, no, yes, no, and, yes, no, but, or yes, no, and unexpectedly. And we'll talk about unexpectedly in a minute. Now, where many other oracles can alter the result based on the odds, 50-50, more likely to get a yes, more likely to get a no, the Loom of Fate changes your odds based on what type of question you are asking. So the first type of information is any information to knowledge. Now, this is finding out about the world around you or the situation at hand. You just want to know, something. Is the door locked? The second column is to conflict, and these are questions that could cause tension in the game, that could maybe overcome an obstacle or even cause problems. The last column is to endings, and these are usually questions that are asked late in an adventure or in a quest as things are wrapping up. Now, I said we would look at the unexpectedly result. Now, if your roll comes up unexpectedly, you have to roll on the unexpectedly table. Now, this is like a random event or a twist in other oracles. You use a d20 and you get one of these results, and then you use this result to alter the game or to throw in a surprise or a twist that you weren't expecting. Now, Surge appears to use a lot of terminology from the theater, so some of these words may not just make sense on their own, but that's okay. They do have an explanation in the rules of what each of these terms mean. For example, one of the roles is costume change. That means that a NPC drastically changes their minds, motivations, alliances. So someone you thought was a friend now becomes an enemy, for instance. Another word you might get is framing, which indicates that someone or something becomes very, very important to the quest that you are on or the story that is being told. Now, there is one more thing that Surge throws into the Loom of Fate to spice things up, make things interesting, throw a little chaos into the mix, and that is the Surge count. At the beginning of the game, you start with a Surge count of 0, and every time you roll on an oracle and don't get like an and or a but, you just get a straight yes or no, you add 2 to the Surge count. Looking at the Loom of Fate, you'll see that 50 is pretty much the breaking point. Anything 50 and below is a no answer. Anything 51 and above is a yes answer. The way the Surge count works is that when you roll on the Loom of Fate, you either add or subtract the Surge count depending on which side of 50 that is. If you're under 50, you will subtract it, moving it closer to 1. And if you're over 50, you'll add it, moving closer to 100. And you can see by doing this, you're moving closer to the extremes, the buts, the unexpectedlies, the answers that really mix things up. Now, if you do roll something that is not just a straight yes or no, the Surge count resets to 0 and you start all over again. Each of these 3 tools has many more examples and information and random tables than I have time to go over right now. In fact, Conjecture Games used to have a website that contained a lot of tips and suggestions on how to use these tools. Now, that website no longer exists, but thanks to the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine, you can still access many of those pages today, and I put a link to that site in the description below. If you're interested in getting any of these tools for yourself, you can get them at DriveThruRPG through the link below in the description. They're all pay what you want, but if you do decide to buy anything using that link, you will be helping support T.O.O.T and Tev's Next Idea. And if you want to support Tev's Next Idea in any other way, including joining our Patreon, that information is in the description as well. And finally, you can visit my site, Tev's Next Idea, at tevsnextidea.blogspot.com and read all my solo actual plays and other things that I post there. So until next time, when I get to share with you more of these wonderful tools, I'm Terrence, saying thanks for watching, and as always, keep rolling solo.